Hey, all my Virgo friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your 2025 yearly horoscope. What I'm going to do today is go through month by month and pull out some of the highlights and the transits that I think are most impactful for you for the year of 2025. This is based on Virgo Rising. If you are not a Virgo rising or you don't know your rising sign, you'll want to go to one of the free birth calculators on the internet. You just need your time of birth, your location, and obviously the date to determine that information. The reason this is important is because the houses that are being highlighted this year will really matter as far as the transits go. So let's just jump in and start with January of 2025. The first thing that's happening at the very beginning of the year is the nodes. The moon's nodes are changing from the Aries Libra axis onto the Pisces Virgo axis. The lunar nodes represent karmic points. The South Node representing our soul's habits, what's familiar to us, what we're used to. The North Node is an experience the soul is stretching to have, an intention in this lifetime. Now, in transit, we are experiencing how this might affect not only your first house of self and who you are and how you see the world, but any planets that are in that first house. So you'll want to check that. This is going to go on for about a year. Pisces is your seventh house. So you could find yourself really wanting to create experiences that foster cooperation, peace, harmony, and on some level, beauty. Pisces is a very creative sign. It's going to be highlighted in 2025 as we will see a stellium that brews up for the first 4 months of the year. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm going to do a separate video on the nodes changing, so we're just touching on the highlights here. Also in January, we will see Uranus move direct in Taurus. Taurus is your ninth house. This is the house that traditionally rules foreign travel, foreign places. It also rules business and commerce, publishing, writing, branding, creating content for the internet these days. We overlay the Taurus energy of the house of possessions, of finances, and there's opportunities to be liberated in some way with anything that might be stagnant or any old beliefs that no longer work for you. Uranus is going to continue and eventually this year move into Gemini just for a little bit, and then retrograde back into the last degrees of Taurus. So this also will be highlighted, your ninth house this year. Venus, Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node will all, by the end of January, be in the house of Pisces. Pisces is your seventh house, again, of partnerships. So your relationships will, in many ways, this next year, bring forth any unconscious or blurry lines might be brought into focus or up for cleaning of the rose-colored glasses in some ways. This could be where if you're Pisces is a sign that is very compassionate and empathetic. And in some times you could inadvertently put your faith in relationships that don't merit because they're not really as dependable or as practical or as realistic or as well thought out as they could be. One of the other challenges with you having the South Node going through your first house is that you will experience moments of egoless. You'll be required to be egoless as some things they'll be out of your control. And the only thing you'll be able to do is process it through your mind and your perception. And that's where the real beauty lies of the South Node. So it becomes a very spiritual point. And I bring that up because as Venus moves through Pisces, she is exalted. She'll come up very close to the North Node and Neptune. Then she will retrograde back. I think she dips her toe into Aries for a minute in February. and then back in Pisces. So this is pretty powerful. In February, we will see Jupiter, which started the year retrograde in Gemini, which is your 10th house of career. This is a house of communications, and the 10th house is a very public house. It's where your reputation and your social status is very visible to those around you. So Jupiter will be moving direct in Gemini, and in June, I'm getting ahead of myself, move into your 11th house of Cancer, where Jupiter will be exalted. So this is very good. So preparing now would be very beneficial. Mars will move direct in Cancer. Mars has already been through Cancer in 2024 in the fall and experienced a opposition to Pluto while Pluto was still in Capricorn. Pluto is now moved into Aquarius. So Capricorn is your 5th house of self-expression, pleasure, joy, laughter, comedy. It's overlaid with this energy of dutifulness, of leadership. And as Pluto moved through that house and now has moved into your 6th house, it's going to offer you an opportunity to take your talents and apply them to work. Now we see an opposition growing with Mars, as Mars goes through Cancer, which is your 11th house. There's going to be a revisit, because when Mars gets back to the late degrees of Cancer, the early degrees of Leo, your 12th house, it's going to make an opposition. But the difference between now and last fall is that Pluto is an Aquarius, almost demanding a new version of something. And for this, it would be your 6th house of work, the one you naturally rule, the 6th house of your health, of your mental health, of your pets. So this is going to be pretty significant in moving forward. As Mars moves through Cancer, it's having to be very aware of other people's emotions and how anger erodes your emotional body, and it erodes your intuitive body. We also see a stellium now. We have the sun and the moon have joined the Pisces energy, and Mercury is there as well. So this is going to be very powerful at the end of February, because let's recap. We've got the sun, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, the North Node, and the moon, and Venus is about to retrograde back into Pisces in March. And March will see our first eclipse season. We will have a full moon lunar eclipse in your 1st house of Virgo. And a full moon. Yes, I said that. Lunar eclipse in your 1st house of Virgo. And then later in the month, 2 weeks later, we'll have a new moon solar eclipse in Aries, the last one on that nodal axis before we start experiencing them on full Pisces Virgo axis. So Aries is your 8th house of transformation. So as you plant the seeds for something to be birthed, something that asserts yourself and potentially creates more bounty for you, because the 8th house is a house of money access. So that could be very good for you. And Neptune will enter Aries for the first time since about 1862. Neptune takes 164 years to traverse the Zodiac, and this is going to be very interesting because Aries is the sign of the individual, the self, the brave one, the pioneer. And I believe that this is going to call forth the peaceful warrior in many ways, the spiritual warrior that's looking at things from a much broader perspective. Venus and Mercury will both retrograde in Pisces. Venus has been flirting around in Pisces now for almost 3 months. It will be 4 months before she leaves. And again, she's in exaltation. Even in retrograde, she will bring benefit during that time. And Mercury will have you rethinking many things, potentially rethinking how you have been processing, Mercury being your ruling planet. How are you processing your creative endeavors? Are you allowing for the creative process? Are you inadvertently still kind of going at it from a Virgonian point of view where you're, you know, I've got to work every single day, put in the hours, do the process, when maybe sometimes the creative process is an ebb and a flow of inspiration. So that might be coming up during March. In April, both Venus and Mercury will turn direct in Pisces. And again, joining the stellium with Saturn and the North Node. Mars will re-enter Leo, and this is when we are really going to feel that opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. So we're looking at your 12th house and your 6th house axis. This is going to task you to be very mindful to follow your heart as part of your health regime. That following your heart, enjoying yourself, having a little bit of fun, and not being always the servant to others will actually serve others more beneficially and succinctly. In May, we will see Saturn enter Aries. Now, Saturn and Neptune have not been far from each other. Neptune just entered Aries and Saturn is following. I keep saying Mars because Mars rules Aries. And when Saturn moves into Aries, Saturn, while it's not exalted or considered in great favor, I personally think it is because Mars is exalted in Capricorn where Saturn rules. And there's a military cooperative component to these two planets that stand in leadership. And I think that that's where we're going to start to see Saturn wanting to really put in structures to allow the individual to stand in leadership and no longer be deceived by potential government or authority or people who try to dominate or act like their authority over you. We will see Pluto retrograde from 3 degrees of Aquarius to 1 degree of Aquarius until October 2025. Again, we are looking at your 6th house. This is a house of health and your daily activities. In June, we will see Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries. They're still going direct, but they are stationing to retrograde. And this is very powerful because it's at the very beginning of the Aries energy where both planets are recalibrating their vibration going from water to fire. Saturn in Aries will square Jupiter in Gemini for the 3rd time. And this is partially because Jupiter is now at the late degrees of Gemini and Saturn is at the early degrees of Aries. And yet this is powerful because this last square is going to illuminate something that they will revisit in trine. These two planets will trine each other later on in the year. So this tense conversation between contraction and expansion, between duty and true abundance and prosperity is very beneficial for you. Aries is your 8th house. That's a money house of transformation. And Gemini, again, is your 10th house of career and public status. We see Jupiter enter exaltation in Cancer. This is your 11th house of hopes and dreams. It's also a house that's very nurturing, a house that, has a lot to do with home, hearth, and the traditions of your culture. And yet we have this Aquarian energy, this 11th house layover, which is looking for a 2.0 version of my Cancerian energy. And Jupiter entering that is going to offer that expansion. You could see yourself, shifting. I think Pluto is going to change your work environment and your health environment for potentially the positive, depending upon your own personal habits. But at the same time, your network could really open up. And if you work with property or in the home industry in some way, this could be very beneficial as you branch out to over the internet or into larger networks throughout the next year. The last time that Jupiter was in Cancer was 2013 to 2014. In July, we're going to see 3 retrogrades. First, we'll see Neptune retrograde on July 4th. That will take place until December 10th and retrograde from 2 degrees of Aries to 29 degrees of Pisces. Saturn will retrograde on the 13th of July until November 28th, going from 1 degree of Aries to 25 degrees of Pisces. Again, these two planets hanging out for a very long time. We're in July and they've just been hovering over each other, really exposing any sort of deception or blurry lines, potentially in government authority, wherever there is leadership out of balance. This is going to be very powerful. And finally, Mercury will retrograde on July 18th until August 11th from 15 degrees to 4 degrees of Leo. This is your 12th house. So you'll be able to revisit your Leo energy and how you are allowing yourself pleasure and enjoyment and laughter and fun. Okay, now we also see in July that Uranus will enter Gemini. This has not happened for 84 years, as it takes 84 years to go around the Zodiac. And we will have Uranus essentially in Gemini until 2032 or 2033. This, coupled with Pluto in Aquarius, is going to create some big rocket ship out to space when it comes to technology, and this could affect your career in some way. And I say that because I feel like with Gemini being your 10th house, obviously of public status, this could be where you really see yourself starting to flourish, or you're starting to get a stronger footing on your future and where you want it to go. In August, Saturn will be retrograde and Neptune will retrograde all month long in Aries before they move into Pisces. And this is significant because they've just entered the sign and they're trying to, feel the landscape of the Aries energy, and there's an immediate backpedaling. So I think that this very much feels like it comes around things that people who have power and control over us. Aries is your 8th house, so that could have something to do with financial banking markets and things such as that, even though we don't traditionally think of Neptune and Saturn as money planets, although Saturn does build money and wealth in a slow, methodical way. But here we could see some erosion of that, or something within the banking systems that have been off. We will also see Venus and Jupiter in Cancer together. Venus loves being in Cancer. Jupiter is exalted, and they will be exact on the 13th. I'm sorry, on the 11th at 13 degrees. This feels like a fortuitous time for money, for expansion, for planning for it at that time. Mars will enter Libra in August in its detriment. And this is where Mars really has to consider the we rather than just the me. And Mars has been going through a series of lessons about how it lands on other people. And I think this is evidenced a lot by Mars's retrograde back into Cancer this year, 2025, as well as its journey in 2024, and then back in 2022 when it retrograded for 7 months in Gemini, which would have been your 10th house. Venus will enter Leo and make her opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. And this could be very challenging because it's on that 12th house, 6th house axis for you. So Venus will be in your 12th house. And it is the height of summer. So some work issues might come up. You may find this is happening at the end of August. You may even find that the beginning of the new school year becomes semi-interruptive to what you're trying to accomplish. Again, Pluto is in your 6th house. So be mindful and take care of yourself. Make sure you're watching your stress level, that you're getting plenty of exercise, plenty of sleep, plenty of fluids, you're hydrating. That will be very helpful during that time. In September, we will have the second eclipse season of the year, and this will be our first full eclipse season on the new nodal axis. We will see a full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces, and we will see a new moon solar eclipse in your 1st house of Virgo. So you are, revisiting some potentially old habits, ways of being, or feeling a sense of with the South Node, you could feel a little bit as if your own perception is not being valued or being recognized, but at the same time, you're getting an opportunity through this North Node in Pisces to go into a more dreamy and more imaginative fun, creativity versus productivity. And you may find that if you're trying to be too productive, that your creativity is demanding your attention and will not allow your productivity to move forward. That's kind of the way I want to say that. That's about the eclipses. So you'll be realizing something in that total lunar eclipse in Pisces. A fog will be removed, and then you'll be able to plant the seeds for a more clear path forward in the solar eclipse in Virgo. Saturn will re-enter Pisces in September. And Uranus will retrograde from 1 degree of Gemini back into Taurus, which is your 9th house. So this is significant because it will not be back in Taurus for 84 years. So it'll be a real revisit of anywhere where there are old beliefs that have held you back, maybe even things that have to do with scarcity, lack, or a sense of needing more safety. The 9th house is going to want to expand you, and the Taurus energy will want to feel a sense of familiarity. And we're going to have to combine those two energies. Okay, in October, we'll see Jupiter in Cancer, trine Saturn retrograde in Pisces. So where they squared each other earlier, now there is a harmonious aspect that brings the possibility through a real, I think, a settling into some sort of routine with your spiritual practices, whether they be affirmations or they be creative vision boards, anything that supports your expanding your intuitiveness, your self-care, and that Saturn will support that. Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces as well, continuing its conversation in retrograde with Saturn. Pluto will go direct in October at 1 degree of Aquarius and has settled into Aquarius and is ready to move the story forward, to liberate you from any mental shackles of stress, of over obligation, of over duty, of overextension of yourself. And it will call you into an energy of being more playful and seeing the benefit of play. In November, Mercury will retrograde from 6 degrees of Sagittarius to 20 degrees of Scorpio. That will happen from November 9th through the 29th. I believe that this will be the last Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. I may be wrong, but the patterns I've seen tend to make me think that Mercury will retrograde more or less in Scorpio in 2026. So this is kind of powerful because, again, it's an opportunity to revisit how my mind has entrapped me in some way. Where are the shackles that hold me tethered to something that isn't authentic? Scorpio is very powerful and dominant in its challenging energies. Jupiter will retrograde from 25 degrees of Cancer to 15 degrees of Cancer from November 11th, 2025 until March 11th, 2026. Again, this is your 11th house of hopes and dreams. So if you're building any sort of presence on the internet, you could find real expansion happening for you at that time. Saturn will go direct in Pisces on the 28th of November at 25 degrees for its final chapter before moving into Aries for the next 2 years. In December, Jupiter will be retrograde, and now Saturn is moving forward, and this is their second trine. So this is another conversation about how to create sustainable expansion and wealth. This is so powerful. And then on the December 10th, Neptune will go direct in Pisces and pretty much has been staying at 29 degrees through the whole retrograde once it entered Pisces, giving you an opportunity to master those last degrees of intuitive spiritual connection to your soul and to what brings a sense of meaning and purpose beyond just being of service to others, but being of service to the self that then expands and helps others. All right, that's it for the highlights of 2025 for my Virgo risings. Please check out your love and money tarot readings. Check out the new moon videos, the full moon videos. There's going to be a ton of content coming out. So hit that notification bell. Please like, please subscribe, and please share. And I will see you soon. Take care and Happy New Year, everybody. Bye-bye.